Hello and welcome to another Frenchman reacts or learns about Japan stream. And yeah, today is another one where we're gonna check out videos from Neon John about like idols, streamer, celebrity, musician, and personalities of Japan, I guess is the best way to put it. And yeah, should be fun. We're gonna learn some stuff. Today we have a few things I know, like Uchida Maya, Morning Musume, but again, it should be interesting to have some kind of intro video about them and see what I don't know, as well as other people I don't know, like Toilet Hanako-san or Enako. So yeah, let's learn as always. Link in the description for the playlist of Neon John. Check out the channel, obviously, they're the one making those awesome introduction video, I guess, to those people. Link to my Discord if you want to follow me. My stream amount, Patreon where you can support me, request reaction, the usual stuff. And yeah, let's learn about all these people. Don't know if there's much more to say. Here we go. So, let's get into the first one, which is Japan's notorious death metal idol. I'm surprised I don't know about her. 14th generation Toilet Hanako-san. Obviously I know about the legend of, like, you know, Hanako-san of the toilet, abandoned toilet in a girls' school or something, and, you know, she died and she's haunting the place. I guess we're gonna talk about suicide, since there's like the outline stuff.
Urban legend that turned into an idol to spit water on her fans? Prepare yourselves for a weird episode of Otaku Files. We're going to talk about 14th generation toilet Hanako-san. Most of us outside of Japan may not be aware of some of the more interesting personalities within the Japanese otaku landscape. So I thought I'd do a little video series and try to shed some light on these individuals. This is Otaku Files. As you can tell from some of the unique individuals I have covered on my channel, Japan isn't short on idols that utilize a certain theme to help them stand out or center their brand on a particular niche. Some themes or gimmicks are fairly simple to understand, even for those not familiar with Japanese culture. Then you come across the name 14th generation toilet Hanako-san and go, what? 14th generation toilet Hanako-san is a solo Japanese underground idol, and that is actually her official English name. In Japanese, it's 14代目トイレの Hanako-san, which is closely translated as 14th generation Hanako-san of the toilet. So no, she
Are you telling me there was 13 people before her?
Isn't a 14th generation toilet. Now when you hear Hanako speak in interviews, she seems rather timid and shy, despite her ghastly appearance. But go to one of her concerts and you'll see a different side of her. A very different side.
Nice. Alright.
Yes, Hanako's music is more on the aggressive side of things, to say the least. And not only that, her concerts are also noted to be quite surprising too. Before we get into that though, let's first talk about what Hanako actually is. And in order to do that, we need to talk about the Japanese urban legend Toire no Hanako, or Hanako of the toilet. Toire no Hanako is a yurei, aka ghost, who haunts the girls' toilet of elementary schools in Japan. There are slight variations depending on the prefecture, but generally you can summon Hanako by going to the girls' bathroom on the 3rd floor of the school. There you need to knock on the door of the first cubicle 3 times and then say, Hanako-san irashaimasu ka? Or Hanako-san, are you there? Then from the 3rd cubicle in a low voice you would hear, Hi. If you open that door, a bobbed-haired girl wearing a red skirt will pull you into the toilet, possibly taking you to hell. Toire no Hanako's exact origin is a bit of a mystery, but it's said she first started appearing around the end of the 1940s. One thing that is common about all the theories regarding Hanako's backstory is that they all involve Hanako dying in some tragic way in the 3rd cubicle of the girls' bathroom that is on the 3rd floor of the school. For example, one theory states that she was a girl who was violently abused by her father until one day she ended up sustaining an injury so bad it resulted in her death. Another theory is that she was a...
I'm sure there's a bunch of movies about, you know, a version of the story. I should watch one if there's a good one. Any recommendation?
a student being chased by a maniac. She tried hiding in the toilet but was found in a third cubicle and killed. There was also some that say she was a victim caught up in a bombing raid during World War II while she was playing hide and seek in the bathroom. I have even read that Toire no Hanako was based on a real tragedy that happened in the 1930s, where a girl named Ikuko, along with her younger brother and sister, ended up being killed by their mother, who had lost her mind due to her husband playing around with different girls every night and deciding to commit a family suicide. Interestingly though, the rumor of Toire no Hanako is said to have become popularized during the 1980s. In the 90s, the theme of spooky school stories became commonly used within various media, such as movies and manga, and as such, Toire no Hanako would often appear as a character. However, during that time, sometimes Toire no Hanako was portrayed as being on the side of good, and as a result, nowadays she is more often depicted.
I've seen Hanako-kun, is it? Like it's a gender-bent version where they solve like supernatural mystery with like Hanako being a guy and friendly, I guess,
as being a savior of children. Regardless in what way she shows up in media, the urban legend of Toire no Hanako is well established within Japan. So pretty much everyone here at the very least has heard of her. And now with that context, we can talk about 14 daime Toire no Hanako-san. As stated on her website, Hanako is an elementary school student that's in the 4th cubicle of the 4th floor girls' toilet at 4:44 and 44 seconds, that's AM by the way, took her own life and became a yokai. As you can tell, our Hanako is all about fours. Just as an FYI, yokai is a rather broad term for a strange phenomenon explained only by a supernatural entity. Generally speaking, ghosts, demons, shapeshifters, etc. can all fall under yokai. Of course, being a yokai, it was a bit hard finding information on Hanako, especially as when she originally appeared back in 2013, she didn't actually speak, instead writing on a small board in order to communicate, keeping in line with her character. Also, she was banned from X for some reason, having her account locked. I suspect it was because she was replying to fans with things like "I'll kill you," which apparently was a common thing she did, and her fans
she can come back today. Like today you won't get banned for anything.
Loved it. Supposedly. Anyway, nowadays, she doesn't seem to care as much about the not speaking thing. In 2023, Hanako stated that she was 4,444 years old. Hanako says she decides her age based on her favorite numbers of that year, so the passing of days and months has nothing to do with it. I'm sure many of us wish to have that ability. She says she has decided that in 2024, she will also be 4,444 years old. Oh, and if you were wondering if Hanako was friends with any other supernatural entities, the answer is no. In fact, Hanako has said she wasn't even that interested in yokai in general, except for Kuchisake Onna, another member of the Urban Legends Club. Before choosing to be an idol, Hanako was really into heavy music like punk and rock. When in middle school, she was a huge fan of the visual K band Dokusatsu Terroristo, who were known for their very controversial lyrics, including playing on words to make them sound sleazy or lyrics that touched upon politics. They broke up in 2011. She doesn't go into details, but it seems Hanako, like many of the other idols I have covered, didn't have the best childhood and listened to bands like Dokusatsu Terroristo as a form of escapism. During her career, she would actually do covers of their songs, but little did she know that Ichiro, the vocalist for Dokusatsu Terroristo, would actually write her a song to do called Takaishiro, which appears in her album Sekai Toire no Hi, which I will talk about a little later. According to Hanako, if middle school Hanako knew about this, she would have quote-unquote gone bald from excitement. As for why she chose to be an idol, Hanako explains that unlike some people that seem to be forced into being an idol or choose the idol route despite not really caring for it, she actually really wanted to be one, but to also make it her own thing. In that case, going the underground route makes a lot of sense, since it would allow her to have more creative freedom in a lot of ways. Not wanting to get involved in any arguments about genres, Hanako says she just plays aggressive music, essentially along the lines of death metal and punk, I'd say, but feel free to give your own opinions. Of course, we need to touch upon Hanako's shows, known for being quite, well, insane. She often uses a variety of liquids and other things like flour, noodles, and fermented soybeans known as natto to bathe her audience with. She also doesn't mind getting a bit violent too. As a result, it seems that Hanako has been cautioned by venue staff numerous times and even banned from performing in some places. Apparently, during the early years, Hanako was a lot more destructive during shows, doing things like breaking her mic and the set around her. But unfortunately, one of her fans actually got really hurt, so she no longer goes that far. Also, some of you might know that after shows, idols usually offer their fans Polaroids of themselves or one taken together. Hanako also does this, but also offers something a little special: to get choked out by her. Over her 10+ year career, Hanako...
Last time one of the girl we learned about like to walk on her fan. It seems to be a thing, but like these underground idols, they amp up the physical contact from like regular idols, which just do like handshake event.
has released a number of albums, her latest one being the one I mentioned earlier, Sekai Toire no Hi. Sekai Toire no Hi in English would be World Toilet Day. Apparently World Toilet Day is actually a thing, at least in Japan anyway, and it falls on November 19th, which also happens to be Hanako's real birthday. She named the album Sekai Toire no Hi so that everyone would remember that. But there is another album of hers whose title I would definitely not be forgetting anytime soon.
Father's masturbation.
Yeah, as you might imagine, Hanako isn't singing about cutesy idol-like things. For example, one of her songs is titled Papa ga naguru no, which in English we can translate to Papa punches me. As I mentioned earlier, there is a theory that Toire no Hanako, which this Hanako is...
I mean, again, like, it's the kind of thing that, like, if you're into death metal, you get used to, right? Not all death metal bands only sing about brutal stuff for shock value, but it's still very common, right? You know, people will always talk about like Cannibal Corpse, for example. You know, like they're very friendly guy and they seem fairly normal, right? But their songs are like always like trying to be as fucked up as possible, like an horror movie. You know, butchered at birth and fucked with a knife and stuff like that, right? It all sounds very fucked up, but once you actually get into it, it starts to feel, you know, it's just like shock value and it feels a lot less like messed up in context. This feels the same here.
Is basing her character on was violently killed by her father, so it could be related to that. Hopefully it's not based on her actual experience. Hanako did mention though that her personality used to be a lot darker, but it wasn't music that helped cheer her up. It was Kamen Rider. Apparently it was Ichiro of Dokusatsu Terroristo that recommended the series to her. Another factor was the pandemic. Being forced to stay home lets her fully enjoy her newfound hobby. Hanako explains that as a very indoors person, she didn't actually find staying at home a bad thing at all. In fact, she says she was really tired from doing so many shows, so to her she basically got a break. As for why she likes Kamen Rider so much, Hanako explains that Kamen Rider won't betray her ideals, unlike real people. She goes on to say that Kamen Rider is her hero and will always protect her. She says that Kamen Rider is the savior of
Which one though? Because there's a lot of Kamen Rider with very different vibe. Yeah.
Lonely people, and that if you do feel lonely, you should seek him out. Although Hanako mainly plays shows in Japan, like at the venue Sangenjaya Heaven's Door, having fans overseas too, recently it seems she has been playing shows in the US as well. So keep your eyes out on her Instagram for tour updates. And if you do have a chance to go see her show, be sure to greet her with Oha Hanako. Oh, and don't go wearing anything expensive. Anyway, that's gonna do it for this video, guys.
Okay, I mean, I like her. I might actually check out her stuff. You know, I like this vibe of the underground idol with like such a unique themselves kind of vibe, from like parody of a yokai to death metal music to some of the quirks, right? It all feels so unique, so standout compared to like anything that could actually be mainstream. This is fun. I'm definitely into stuff like this in concept, you know. Really good video. She's pretty interesting. Yeah. It's fun. Next video is about Morning Musume, which is actually a group that I should know a good amount about. I've reacted to like 20, 30, 40 songs over the last many years. You know, became a big fan of Tsungu as a composer, the guy behind most of the group and the subgroup. Yeah, Morning Musume is awesome. I mean, I think overall I might be more into Morning Musume than AKB. Yeah.
When you want to talk about legendary Japanese idol groups, this is one name that must definitely come up. And yet, they were formed in one of the most unusual circumstances, with hopes for them succeeding not that very high. The true idol underdog story. We're going to talk about Morning Musume. But before we get into that, everyone, I have some shocking news. I got my very first sponsor. Yes, this channel that didn't even
Nice.
have 1,000 subs at the beginning of the year got reached out to. And amazingly, it's for something that I use on almost a daily basis for my work. If like me, you need to regularly scour the internet, there is one thing you definitely need to help stop any chances of hackers or malware infections getting to your precious data. That is of course with a virtual private network, aka a VPN. And if you need a
I've got one already. I'll pass the ad. But very nice, get your bag.
now know the name Morning Musume. They created the foundation for the system for which most idol groups now use, such as graduating and introducing new members, or generations as it would be. The group have churned out numerous hit songs over their 25+ year run, including mega hits like Love Machine, which despite being released back in 1999, remains a favorite for karaoke lovers to this day. Morning Musume were known for their amazing live performances, and in an age where the internet wasn't as widespread yet, you would hear through word of mouth that if you really wanted to appreciate Morning Musume, you needed to see them live. Another element that made Morning Musume stand out was their unusually large female fan base. This is in stark contrast to another group that they are usually compared with, AKB48. Now, to understand how
Frankly, again, like, for many years, before actually with this channel and my last deleted channel, getting into Japanese idol stuff, so like for many years, the only idol name I really knew was AKB. I always thought they were like the big ultimate one, and maybe in popularity they are bigger, right? But since I got more into idol stuff, yeah, Morning Musume are like, you know, potentially even more important, even though they're not as popular today, I guess. And they're pretty awesome, yeah. Again, I just really like Tsunku's music.
Morning Musume started, we have to look to the group's producer, Tsunku. Tsunku is actually the main lead singer for the rock band Sharam Q, and on a variety program called Asayan, Sharam Q held an audition for a female vocalist called Sharam Q Josei Rock Vocalist Audition. This audition was essentially done in a reality show kind of way, where viewers would be able to watch the whole process as it went along. This may be something fairly common now, but it was a pretty new thing back around that time. Oh, and this was no small audition. Oh no. At first, there was a screening process, and anyone who passed would need to sing a song in a cappella. If you managed to pass that, you got to sing in the Asayan studio in front of a live audience. Winners would then be able to proceed to the next stage. This would be done for 4 different cities over the course of a couple of months: Fukuoka, Tokyo, Osaka, and lastly, Sapporo. There were hundreds, or in the case of Tokyo and Osaka, thousands of people that applied, but that number was severely whittled down to 2 or 3 figures for each city after the screening process, with only a small number being able to go through and actually sing at the Asayan studio. In the end, after that whole process, there were a total of 11 auditionees left from those 4 cities that would be able to move on to the next stage. On July 29th, 1997, the remaining 11 would be sent to a temple to live in for a few days as a way to test their fortitude and to also train them for their final test. A typical TV program thing to do. When they arrive,
I love it though. People always talk about how weird Japanese TV can be in terms of concept, but it just sounds like a lot of fun. Yeah. I don't know.
Arrived at the temple, they were given demo tapes, which had an instrumental version of the song Get, with a female voice humming instead of singing what would be the lyrics. It turns out that this actually would be the winner's debut song, and that the final test was having them sing Get in front of an audience. Now, training at the temple wasn't exactly fun, being given a strict schedule that they had to adhere to. This included waking up at 5 AM and doing chores like cleaning the main hall, scrubbing the floors, and doing dishes. My guess is that they essentially did what a monk in training would do. To also prepare them for the big day, they also needed to attend dance and singing lessons. And then that day finally arrived.
Like, compared to what you will actually have to go through if you become a popular idol in terms of schedule and all that, it's not that bad.
August 3rd, 1997. Each of the girls went on stage to perform the song they had been practicing up until now. After they were finished, they would then be interviewed by the members of Sharam Q. As you can imagine, it was a pretty nerve-wracking time for all of them. And unfortunately for some of the girls, things didn't go super well. For example, Heike Michio actually forgot part of the lyrics. Ishiguro Aya gave a pretty good performance up until the end, where her voice broke. Feeling really frustrated with herself, she even ended up shedding some tears before the interview. After everyone had had their turn, Sharam-Q would then discuss who would be the winner. But the actual announcement of the winner would be made on August 10th, a week later. And shockingly, the winner turned out to be Heike Michio, the very same person who had forgotten part of the lyrics. Heike Michio's story is honestly one that could be a whole video by itself, so let me know if you'd like to see a video on her. Anyway, as you can imagine, for the losers, it was a painful time. After going through a long and hard process to get to this point, it was now all over. The announcement was apparently made on the birthday of finalist Abe Natsumi, who ended up crying on the flight back home. She cried so much, apparently even a stewardess tried to cheer her up with some sweets. All those that lost tried dealing with the result in their own way. Some, such as Ishiguro Aya, carried on trying to go down the artist route, taking dance lessons and apparently even joining a music contest for teens. But out of the 10 that had lost, for 5 of them, things hadn't truly ended yet. Nakazawa Yuko, Ishiguro Aya, Ida Kaori, Abe Natsumi.
So I'm guessing it wasn't a plan at first to make a group. They were really looking for a single one, but after like doing this program, they were like, actually a group sounds kind of good.
And Fukuda Asuka. These 5 were actually called back to appear on Asayan again. This time they were given a new kind of test, but not one where there would just be one winner. Despite being from different parts of the country and even being different ages, the 5 of them would form a unit and were tasked with trying to sell 50,000 copies of what would be their indie single Ai no Tane within 5 days. For Ai no Tane, Senku would actually have no involvement in its production. The lyrics would be done by musician and music producer Saiki Kenzo, with the composition done by another musician and music producer known as Sakurai Tetsutaro. This might seem like a monumental challenge, but I can imagine after all they've been through previously, for them this was undoubtedly an amazing second chance to make it big. There was a promotional campaign for Ai no Tane, including a promotional video, but in actuality, the girls had nothing to worry about. On the first day in Osaka, they sold over 15,000 copies of Ai no Tane, setting a world record for the most sales of the same CD within one store. Apparently, the members were originally supposed to sell the copies just by their own hands, but there were just too many people wanting to buy the CD, so they also cooperated with the
I mean, how were they going to sell 50,000 by their own hand in 5 days? Like, that just doesn't, the math doesn't add up anyway.
HMV store close by so that people could buy it from there too. They held similar campaigns in Fukuoka, Sapporo and Nagoya, but by the 4th day they had successfully sold 50,000 copies of Ai no Tane, and thus it was decided that they would have their major debut. The following year, on January 28th, Morning Musume made their major debut with the single Morning Coffee, starting their legendary journey. Now,
I think I've reacted to that one. I'm pretty sure I've reacted to their first single, yeah. It's probably lost since it was on my old deleted channel, but yeah, might have been the first one I reacted to. It was probably you, Aaron, if you're watching, that requested it back then.
Now, Morning Musume starting off so successfully shouldn't actually be a surprise to anyone for one major reason that I touched upon earlier. Since the time of Sharam-Q's audition, the members' journey was all being filmed and shown on TV, meaning they probably already had a lot of people cheering them on and wanting them to be successful, even though they were amateurs who had ultimately lost the audition. I mean, if you really think about it, it's probably for very similar reasons why Japanese idols have fans in the first place. Now, having a 25+ year...
I mean, actually, this is like the start of a challenge, right? Because in the Showa era, you know, well, Showa started before, but let's say after World War II to the end of the 80s, idols were very different. It was in the Showa era, idols were a lot more like trying to be perfect, appear perfect, singing, dancing, public appearance, interview. But then in the essay, in the 90s, especially with Morning Musume at the end, I guess this is where the new style of idol started, where, you know, they started as much more like normal girls who weren't perfect, and the appeal was seeing them come from the bottom and rise their way up, in terms of popularity, but also like in terms of improving skills and everything. That became like the new appeal of idols, I guess. And I guess looking at this, Morning Musume might have been the catalyst of it. I never realized that.
Career. As you can imagine, it would be pretty difficult to go over everything that happened to Morning Musume up to this point in one video, so instead I'm going to briefly go over some of their history and basic knowledge that one might like to know. But if you would like to see more videos on Morning Musume, let me know in the comments below. As I touched upon before, Morning Musume brought in the idea of generations, aka new members being added to the group, at a time where that wasn't really viewed as being normal, and apparently it also wasn't initially taken in a very positive way. To fans, the members, aka the first generation, generation worked really hard to establish the group and were essentially like, why are these girls who didn't do anything coming in thinking that they could have the spotlight? But members leaving, aka graduating, and the group not disbanding, instead welcoming in new members, would eventually be a system that everyone would come to accept. And additional members was something Tsunku got to working on very quickly, as a couple of months after Morning Musume's debut, he made the announcement on an episode of Asayan that he was indeed looking for new members. In similar reality TV show fashion, the whole process to find additional members was also shown on Asayan. In May, there were 3 winners announced: Yasuda Kei, Ichi Sayaka, and Yaguchi Mari, who would then appear in Morning Musume's second single, Summer Night Town. Known for being a bit of a sultry song, Morning Musume's popularity would continue to grow, and their third single, Daite Horumi, would even reach the top spot in the Oricon charts. However, they would also experience what would be their first graduation, as first gen member Fukuda Asuka decided to leave, stating that she wanted to concentrate on her studies, although she would end up dropping out of high school not long after that. Years later, on a talk show, Asuka would say that at that time she just couldn't cope with the schedule and couldn't imagine spending her whole life like that. Now, what many would...
It's why, maybe stop getting people who are like so freaking young. I mean, I understand they need to be a level of young, but let them at least be like in the early 20s, where they figured out life a little more than, high school, right? Because, I don't know, it feels like it happens all the time in this kind of adult group that people like can't last a year or two. Sure, it was their dream at first to join, but quickly they're just too young to deal with everything. At the same time, I guess, like, even if you're like 30, 40 years old, I don't think most people are ready to deal with this level of fame and stuff like that. So maybe it's not an age thing, it's a person thing, You can't know until you deal with it.
Considered to be the biggest turning point for Morning Musume was the addition of their third generation, which was just one member, Goto Maki. Goto Maki became an instant favorite and was even given the center position. The way she looked with her dyed hair, her incredible dancing and singing abilities, and that cool and charismatic aura that she had captured the hearts of fans of various age groups. She was like no other idol before, and along with her debut song with the group being the mega hit Love Machine, a social phenomenon known as the Gomaki boom occurred in Japan, Gomaki being Maki's nickname. To Maki, she just felt like it was all luck, and she didn't even understand what given the center position actually meant. Apparently before joining, she wasn't even all that familiar with Morning Musume's songs or their members. Regardless, Maki's inclusion to the group marked the start of what is noted to be Morning Musume's peak of popularity, dubbed the Ogonki, or the Golden Era, named after the group's golden outfits.
Yeah, most of the songs I'd reacted to were from the early 2000s, and I guess that era, especially like that era when they were doing a lot more comedy style song, I would say, especially in the videos.
Associated with their 12th single, Zapis, which, along with their 11th single, Renai Revolution Nijuichi, were also mega hits in Japan. The end of the Ogonki is said to have occurred when Abe Natsumi graduated in 2004. By that point, Goto Maki and the majority of Gen 1 and 2 had already graduated, but Morning Musume was already on their 6th generation. Many Morning Musume fans do argue about the starting and finishing points of eras, so feel free to give your opinion in the comments below, but just try to be civil about it. There are 3 more eras within the Morning Musume timeline: the Platinaki or Platinum era, starting from around 2007 and ending in 2010; the Karafuruki or Colorful era, starting from 2011 and ending in 2014; and last but not least, the Fukumura Mizuki or Fukumura Mizu era, starting from 2014 and ending in 2023. The Platinaki was an era where the group experienced a lack of new members. Instead, with the leader being popular member Takahashi Ai, it was a period where Morning Musume reinvented themselves and became a more redefined dance unit, vastly improving the quality of their performances. Platinaki was said to have been named after their album Platina 9 disc, released in 2009. However, it was also noted to be a time where Morning Musume experienced an overall decline in popularity, making less and less TV appearances. The Karafuruki is said to have started around the time the 9th generation joined, around 2011. Named after their 13th album 13 Karufuru Character, the colorful era, now with much more younger members, saw a resurgence in Morning Musume's popularity. Compared to the Platinaki, this era was all about more upbeat songs, even incorporating electro beats into their music. The members were also noted to being very unique. Lastly, Fukumura Mizuki, named after the longest serving leader of Morning Musume, 9th gen member Fukumura Mizuki. Anyway, I'm going to stop it here. If you're interested in knowing more about Morning Musume,
I mean, obviously, like, someone could probably make like 2-hour video about all this. There's probably like so much to talk about. I wouldn't mind if anyone knows any kind of actual documentary like that for like AKB, Morning Musume, and any of the kind of famous group like this. Some kind of like full dive into their history and all the interesting facts. I am totally interested. Let me know about it.
Or any other Japan-related topic, please let me know in the comments.
Good video. I mean, again, I checked out quite a bit of Morning Musume, but still, there's like insane amount I don't know because so much happened. They've been going on for so long. Good video. Good video. I mean, it's a nice little recap, yeah. Okay, next we have Japan's most controversial anti-idol group, BIS. I might know BIS, but let's see. If it loads.
We're going back to the anti-idol side of things, and if there's one group that we must talk about when it comes to anti-idols, it would be this one. They were known for their rather provocative music videos, insane performances, and equally insane fans. By popular request, in this episode of Otaku Files, we talk about the legendary alternative idol group, BIS. Most of us outside of Japan may know the Idol Kyukai in Japan, standing for Brand New Idol Society, or Shinsei Idol Kyukai in Japanese. BIS were an alternative idol group that were active from around the end of 2010 up until a few months ago as of this recording. During that period, they also disbanded twice. Currently, BIS's timeline is broken down in generations. The first gen being from 2010 to 2014, the second gen from 2016 to 2019, and the third gen that started from around a month after the second gen's disbandment in 2019. For this video though, we will mainly be focusing on the first gen and their formation, as well as their reputation. Now, to talk about BIS's origins, we need to talk about the group's former leader and the one considered to be BIS's founder, Pu Rui. Originally from Yono, located in Saitama, Rui actually started off as a solo artist around 2009, calling herself New Age rock icon. Definitely starting out big. Her manager at the time was Watanabe Junnosuke, who would actually become the founder of the music production group WAC, and would also help Rui start BIS, as well as be involved in their overall production. WAC would be known to have a number of more non-traditional idol groups under them, such as BIS from their second generation, Bish, ASP, Gang Parade, and so on. Now, Rui had always been into music and admired many different singers. She even started a band during middle school within the school's music club. Unfortunately, the club ended up getting abolished, but she started another band during high school, which even included members from other schools. Amazingly, her band even played at some small music venues known as Raibuhouse in Japanese. She was serious about entering the world of showbiz, and even took a number of auditions from her third year of high school. The one she managed to pass was an audition set up by the indie record company Tsubasa Records, titled Kawashima Ai ni Tsuzuke Major Debut Audition, which we can translate as Follow in the Footsteps of Kawashima Ai, the audition to make your major debut. For those that don't know, Kawashima Ai was a prolific singer-songwriter who unfortunately ended up stopping her activities in 2023 due to ongoing complications from vocal cord surgery. She was made to take on the name Pu Rui, as essentially instructed within an email sent by Junnosuke explaining that it meant for him in French. She would then make her debut as
Pour lui. Yes. I see. It does mean for him, yeah.
The sort of protege of Kawashima Ai, singing only love songs, which apparently was the concept she was given. Now, you might be wondering, where do idols come into the picture? Well, Rui was actually a massive fan of idols, especially Morning Musume. She particularly admires Takahashi Ai. I also have a video on Morning Musume for anyone interested. Her solo activities as an artist though weren't going that particularly well, and as a way to market her, Junnosuke contacted Ototoi, a fee-based music distribution website that also shares music-related news. The plan was to put up regular stories or articles based on Rui for a year. However, in the course of their conversations, one of Ototoi's editors noticed that she spoke passionately about idols, and then suggested, if you like them so much, why don't you become an idol yourself? To which Rui thought, yeah, let's do that. And that's what would eventually lead to the formation of BIS. So no, it wasn't a suggestion from Watanabe Junnosuke, and interestingly, when the idea was brought up, Rui says that Junnosuke made a weird face. At the time, Rui and Junnosuke didn't actually work that well together. Junnosuke was very strict with her, and that made her pretty much hate him. Seeing that weird look on his face was all she needed. She agreed to turn to the idol path. So instead of the articles being solely about Rui, it would be about the forming of her idol group. It also ended up being for more than 1 year. year, being a more permanent thing. However, Junnosuke wasn't very happy with the whole idol idea, and even at the beginning told Rui that she was on her own after failing to convince her to change her mind. This idea of doing it by yourself is actually what formed the basis for BIS's motto of DIY, something that prevailed throughout BIS's whole run. There is even footage of members setting up things before a concert. However, since starting things completely by herself was surprisingly a lot more challenging than one might have thought, Junnosuke did end up helping Rui out. Through Tsubasa Records, auditions were held to find members for her idol unit. Even though a PR campaign was also done for the auditions that were held in 2009, there were only around 30 people that applied. Luckily for Rui though, around that time the idol scene was completely blowing up, especially in Akihabara. Groups like Momoiro Clover Z, or should I say Momoiro Clover, that debuted around 2008 were gaining a lot of popularity, and even the idol group POSPO hit the top spot.
Considering like the turnaround of like idol group as we keep learning, most of them like they have a new gen every like 2 or 3 years. Momoiro Clover are like awesome because it's already been like they're probably getting close to 20 years at this point, and they're still performing together with the original members
of the Oricon charts for the very first time. As you might have guessed, Junnosuke started to like the whole going idol idea. As he explained in an interview, that was a time where even if the idol group weren't known, you would still get 30 or so people that would come and buy tickets for a show. I bet his eyes started turning into yen signs. The auditions for BIS were also shown via the streaming service Ustream, showing Rui interviewing each of the auditionees. Out of those that applied, 4 were selected, which, including Rui, would make 5 members in total. However, one of those selected decided to drop out, leaving BIS with 4 members that would make their debut: Purui, Hirano Nozomi, Yokoyama Rina, and Nakayama Yukiko. BIS's concept was a group of 4 that were pursuing their goal of becoming idols by researching idols. In other words, they weren't going off on the premise that they were already idols, but were just trying to be idols. Also, quote-unquote, researching idols also meant taking inspiration from other idol groups, and sometimes just straight up copying choreography. As some of you might know, the interpretation of this concept would eventually change too, just by a little. Officially, BIS's activities started from November 2010, but the first song they would release would be Taiyo no Jumon, released January the following year, a song from their debut album, the self-titled Brand New Idol Society, that would come out not so long after that. Although their songs were what one might consider to be more traditional idol songs, they still had that aggressive vibe that they would be more well known for down the line. A fundamental reason for this is that the people involved with helping BIS in terms of their production and behind the scenes would eventually become employees of WAC, or another music production company that they would often work with called Scrambles. They also happen to be the same people that helped with Rui's past solo career. For their first live performance, the ones that actually booked the event were the members themselves. According to Rui, they lucked out. Through one of the members' connections, they managed to perform at an event where a group called Pradia, who are associated with POSPO, were also doing their first performance.
So there
were a lot of POSPO fans who turned up for that particular show. A pretty good start. However, when talking about BIS, there is of course one thing that must be brought up, and that's the insane way that they ended up marketing themselves, most notably through their provocative and sometimes controversial music videos, as well as their pretty over-the-top live performances. Being an indie group, which basically meant their budget was practically non-existent, their management, aka Watanabe Junnosuke, thought the only way to really make the group stand out and be noticed was through these methods. Junnosuke is actually a pretty controversial character among the Japanese interwebs for reasons such as these and others, but I won't get into all that for this video. And the first music video we would see from BIS that would start the flames going is for their self-titled song. Being filmed in a train station, we can see the girls performing acts like cleaning and decorating the inside of a train. With what seems to be real passengers, this video received quite the backlash at the time of its release. Oh, and while standing up during the music video, Yokoyama Rina flashed her underwear or whatever, and apparently that was a big thing at the time. Right. I guess management got what they wanted. The fun doesn't stop there.
It's one of those things where, like, as someone from not Japan, this all feels like so tame, right? But we all kind of know the social rules of Japan being pretty strict. So something like just, making a mess to film your video in a train without a passenger is like super rude or something. So, right away that would cause controversy. And it's not really what you would expect of an idol group.
As for their next music video for the song Paprika, they essentially seem to parody tattoos, all the things you said, mixing in headbanging and also stockings. Yeah, Rui was very much on board with a lot of the management team's ideas, agreeing that this is how they could stand out from the rest. And for sure, those videos certainly brought in numbers and helped BIS start to develop quite a cult following, gaining fans that recognized that BIS was doing something really different from other idol groups around that time. By the way, their next music video was for the song Nerve, a solid fan favorite, which honestly even I really like. Compared to the others, it's actually a fairly normal music video. However, the packaging for the single looks like it's censored. Seems a bit familiar. Despite getting noticed,
cool.
not everyone within the group felt comfortable with BIS's direction and the kind of reputation they started to gain.
I mean, it sounds like when they did the audition, that wasn't the direction. They wanted to do like a normal idol group, so I can assume that you join and suddenly they're making you do all this crazy shit. Yeah, I assume that's not really what you wanted. Yeah.
Later interviews, Rui would explain that there were actually a lot of arguments behind the scenes. I think it's important to understand that Rui had applied for tons of auditions, and it was the Tsubasa Records one that she finally managed to pass. Now experiencing some sort of success, she wanted to keep things going on as much as possible. She also commented that she was actually just enjoying herself, but for one member, it was just all too much. After around 6 months, starting member Yokoyama Rina would end up leaving BIS. After all the weird things they were doing for their music videos, like randomly putting decorations around inside a train or headbanging with stockings pulled over their heads, Rina believed BIS had diverged far too much from her lifelong dream of being in a standard idol group. Her final performance in BIS was in the Lifehouse Shimokitazawa shelter on June 24th, 2011. This also wouldn't be the only time BIS had a member graduate. In fact, over the years, they would experience a number of member changes. A famous Japanese interviewer, Yoshida Go, who would also interview Rui years later, commented that he saw BIS as having two kinds of members, those that were brainwashed by Watanabe Junnosuke and those that were not. This might be a big reason as to why there was so much infighting. BIS's very untraditional direction for their music videos would lead to what is arguably the video most people think of when it comes to BIS. In July 2011,
in the end, I don't actually think I know them, yeah.
They released their music video for My Eye. In it, the members undress themselves and run seemingly naked
It's probably like a bodysuit.
through a forest. As you can imagine, this caused quite the stir, but they were using skin-colored covers, so they weren't actually fully nude. The video, though, now has over 12 million views on YouTube. In regards to the video, Junnosuke explains pretty much what I said previously, that it was all about getting people to know the group. Around that time, they only had about 100 people that would come and see them live, and as
I kind of get it. I mean, again, as long as the girls are okay with all the craziness, you know, like, no matter how good your music is or your performance are, it's all about getting lucky with getting eyes on your stuff. It's even more like this now, but even back then, right? So like, doing stuff that make you viral is just the way to go. Even if it's, you know, it's got nothing to do with your music, right? Getting eyes on your stuff is what artists do.
As long as the members were on board with it,
It reminds me of like some of the lewd instrument channel, like Pan Piano is a good example. She's this woman with like, she's really hot, and she does like super lewd thumbnail and cosplay, but she's also like a master pianist who does cover of anime song, and you know, she's like the perfect example of like, if she had just done a normal channel just playing piano in regular outfit, she probably wouldn't have gotten like very big, but because of her passion and skills at doing extremely lewd thumbnails, pose, and outfits, she became very popular, you know.
what he thought was necessary. Rui actually mentions that her
Which gets eyes on the stuff, which is actually great, the piano skills, you know.
family ended up watching the video, but thought it still wasn't as bad as Paprika. Based. Thanks to Junnosuke, over the course of those 4 years, BIS had done quite a lot of other nutty and weird things besides making provocative music videos on a budget. From making a weird hip-hop side project called Dis, to collabing with a band called Hijo Kaidan to form BIS Kaidan, delivering some of the craziest live performances you've ever seen. By the way, apparently fans at these shows had to sign a waiver so that the group wouldn't be sued if a fan gets injured by some flying object. If there was a
Can that even be legal?
chance to create some sort of buzz, BIS would take it. One thing that BIS did, which I haven't actually heard many talk about, is the time that Junnosuke made the members cosplay as different famous characters and try to invade a Momoiro Clover Z event. Member Nakayama Yukiko even ran up to a truck that was promoting the group.
That is really like that is really the kind of thing that I love in concept. But I can imagine, yeah, like the amount of hate they probably got because it's Japan once again. Like this kind of thing is so not in the culture as a positive thing. You know what I mean? Like this reminds me of the time, like WWE tried to invade WCW in the 90s, pro wrestling stuff. Yeah.
But it was all for naught, as apparently the event had already finished by the time they got there because Junnosuke messed up the time. Bis ended up doing a small impromptu performance on the street, and Junnosuke ended up doing a dogeza. Just another day for Bis. Despite all the backstage bickering and member changes, Bis created quite a name for themselves and even managed to get onto a major label in 2012. That would also mean that a lot of the more insane ideas that Bis had were rejected by the label, but on the other hand, they were also able to do bigger things. This would include 2 movies and even an animated series, all starring the BIS members. Pretty cool.
That looks, if I'm to be kind, atrocious.
However, over time, it seems that Rui's feelings towards the group started to change. I mean, with constant member changes and tales of negative exchanges behind the scenes, I guess it wasn't hard to see this coming. Not only that, it wasn't just Rui, but the management and the other members too that seemed to run out of steam. During an event in February 2014, BIS would announce that they would be holding their last concert on July 8th in Yokohama Arena. Apparently, they were hoping for the Budokan, Japan's most famous...
I mean, that's still massive, Yokohama Arena. I didn't realize they got this big.
This arena, but their reputation wouldn't allow for that. The first generation of BIS had an amazing run, and even to this day, they are still talked about. Anyway, that's going to do it for this video, guys. Thank you so much. This was a much requested video. Of course, I do know who BIS is. I
mean, they seem interesting. Again, like, on one side, it's like, some of the stuff they did seems not that bad to me. But when you think it's Japan, yeah, it's actually pretty extreme. Like, they were really, you know, testing things, especially like as an idol group, right? Because if it's a metal band or something, it's not as unexpected, right? But yeah, for like what's much more, you know, mainstream stuff, they were really pushing the envelope, I guess. Interesting. Maybe I'll check out their music one day. That would be cool. That would be cool. Next we have Uchida Maya. I mean, I know her for voice acting, but I don't really know much personally. So let's learn.
She's not only been the voice of some of the most recognizable faces within the anime world, and also an amazing singer, she's also not too bad on the eyes either. We're going seiyuu for this one. In this episode of Otaku Files, it's time to talk about the popular voice actress Uchida Maya. Most of us outside of Japan may not be aware of Otaku Files. Anyone familiar with Japanese voice actresses would most likely know who Uchida Maya is.
Of course,
often
yeah.
Being in the top spot of popularity rankings for seiyuu, the Japanese word for voice actor / actress. If you watch anime, you have undoubtedly come across a character she's voiced. She's known for voicing chunibyo characters and being a bit of a chunibyo herself. We'll get more into that later.
Perfect.
So first, as usual, let's go back a bit. Born and raised in Tokyo, Maya says that as a child she was very shy and used to cry a lot. However, she also has an adventurous side, and apparently one day when she was 6, she rode on her bicycle with her 3-year-old brother to her grandmother's house without letting her parents know. Luckily, she was spotted by some of her mother's friends who ended up calling her mother. Maya's otaku side started coming out from a really young age. When she was in elementary school, she loved the characters from the anime Nintama Rantaro. An interesting fact about Nintama Rantaro is that despite being an anime geared towards kids, it
Never checked it out, but I know there was like a new movie recently that was pretty popular.
had an overwhelmingly large adult female fan base. Yeah. Anyway, Maya also started getting into video games around that time, playing games like Pokemon and Final Fantasy VII. During her middle school years, she really loved Japanese history and culture. Wanting to have a job strong in those elements, Maya thought of becoming a maiko in Kyoto. FYI, a maiko is the name of a geisha apprentice. Perhaps related to that, she even joined her school's drama club, but stopped going after 2 years because apparently she got into an argument with the teacher. Maya explains that her teacher didn't seem to like her very much and stopped her from taking part in plays, despite there being only around 5 students in total. Her teacher said to Maya that she just lacked quote-unquote something, which is why they didn't let her perform. Bummer. She still had her dream though, and declared that instead of going to high school, she was going to Kyoto to become a maiko. Her family said no. And that was the end of that. However, it seems that she wasn't the only otaku in the house, as one thing that both her and her family did enjoy was playing video games. Maya is known to be an avid gamer who played for hours upon end back in the day, and as a result, she started considering working at a games company. But being a part of the drama club did make Maya understand she also enjoyed acting. Being into characters that appeared in video games, etc., she started looking at the path of becoming a seiyuu, wanting to voice those kind of characters herself. However, she was a bit torn between deciding to go to voice acting school or university. Some of you might already know, but there's actually a lot of people here in Japan that wish to become a seiyuu. With so much competition, only a small percentage actually go on to have a successful career as one.
I mean, the level of it, I think everybody knows, is so fucking high, right? That's the thing. It's pretty insane, the level of all the popular one, right?
High school, Maya visited a few different voice acting schools during their open days to see what they were like. At the end, she finally decided to apply for the voice acting school Nichinare, short for Nihon Narration Engeki Kenkyujo. The reason being, she saw how much fun everybody was having during the 3-hour lesson she was sitting in on. Not only that, despite applying a bit late, Nichinare were really kind and responsive, making her feel like they were the right choice. Interestingly, her class was actually only once a week for 3 hours, but it was jam-packed, and for the rest of the week, Maya would get together with her classmates to practice. She went all out, buying all kinds of scripts to practice with, and even bought a voice recorder. She trained hard to be a seiyuu, but loved her time at the voice acting school, making a lot of friends. There were also tough times though, like when she would get scolded by the teacher and end up wondering if she was really cut out to be a seiyuu. But she also really had supportive teachers and classmates that helped her overcome many hurdles. While she was still in Nichire and as a part of her training period, in 2009 she also made her voice acting debut in the OVA for a popular web manga called Boku Otariman, playing various roles. The following year she joined the voice talent agency I'm Enterprise Inc. Now, as awesome and exciting as that all sounds, it's what happened in 2011 that made Maya happy that she chose to be a seiyuu. She made her first video game voice acting debut. It was for the game Gyaru Gun. Gyaru Gun is a bishoujo rail shooter. Instead of shooting bullets, you shoot pheromone
I've played one gal gun once. I mean, it's fun for like 5 minutes.
And your enemies are love-obsessed schoolgirls. And no, this isn't a hentai type of game, but as you might have guessed, it does have a lot of fan service. She played one of the heroines named Sakurazaki Kaoruko. Surprisingly, Maya didn't actually know the game had any raunchy lines in it and was a bit shocked when she was handed the script during the audition. When she asked for more information, she came to understand it was just a really silly game. But besides being her video game voice acting debut, according to Maya, this was the first role she actually passed the audition for since she left Nichinare, so she was pretty nervous when playing Kaoruko. Being nervous kept her on her toes though, which made her take the role that much more seriously. I've actually heard about this game before and didn't know she voiced a character in it. Maybe I'll give it a try for research purposes. Yeah. Maya actually voice acted in quite a few anime around those years, but it's said she started to catch the eye, or should I say ears, of otaku.
Oh man, I forgot about this one, Sankarea. That's a forgotten show. Zombie girlfriend kind of show. It was alright.
For her role in the anime Sankarea as the main protagonist and heroine going by the same name, Sankarea.
The girl is great. The show isn't that great, but the girl is great, yeah.
A girl who through a series of events turns into a zombie and starts living with the other main character, Furuya Chihiro. Apparently, this was the first time Maya voiced a protagonist, marking a turning point in her career. But when I think of Uchida Maya, and I'm sure it's the same for many of you too, I think of the role she got within that same year of 2012. Takahashi Rikka, the main heroine of the anime Chunibyo Demo Koi ga Shitai. I have touched upon this before in a different video, but let me explain what Chunibyo means before going any further. Literally translated as second year of middle.
I think anyone on the video but Uchida Maya probably understand, but
middle school syndrome. Junibyo is a colloquial term that describes young teens who have quote-unquote grandiose delusions. Apparently its origins can be traced back to the comedian Hikaru Ijuin, who used the term on his radio show as a part of a joke in the late 90s, reflecting on his own experiences, but it didn't hold the same meaning as it does now. Using the term in a sense of quirky things that you said or thought back in middle school that could be funny thinking about it now or relatable to other listeners. He then made it a regular segment, getting inviting listeners to submit their chunibyo moments. Although this lasted for only around 2 months or so, the term showed up again on the Japanese interwebs around the mid-2000s, being used especially in the anonymous messaging forum 2chan. However, it's here that the term's meaning started to change, now being used with a more negative nuance. Eventually, a number of tropes surrounding chunibyo would develop about the kinds of things that they would say and do, usually weird stuff connected to themselves and the supernatural, like saying their right arm is tingling due to their suppressed powers, or that they're being chased by an organization. They often go into strange monologues as if everyone is paying complete attention to them. The eye patch, like what Takahashi Rika wears, is also a classic chunibyo characteristic. Anyway, let's get...
Not one of my favorite trope or anything, but I like it. I mean, chunibyo can be quite fun. Yeah.
Get back to Maya. Based on the light novel written by Torako, Chunibyo Demo Koi ga Shitai is a romantic comedy following the story of Yuta Togashi, who tried escaping his chunibyo past by having a fresh start in high school, only to end up being involved with a chunibyo girl in his class. That girl, of course, being Takahashi Rika. The anime series was a massive hit, and many attribute this to Uchida Maya's character, placing Maya right into the otaku spotlight. Further proof of Maya's superb voice acting abilities would be proven by her winning the Seiyu Award in 2014 for Best Rookie Actress. But stop right there, some of you might be saying, what about Kanzaki Ranko?
Ranko, yeah, that's a good choice. Huh? Master Cinderella Girls?
Yes, Takahashi Rika wasn't the first chunibyo character Maya voiced. Technically speaking, it's said to have been Kanzaki Ranko from the mobile game Idolmaster Cinderella Girls, a 14-year-old with a pretty severe case of chunibyo. In any case, undoubtedly Maya's fanbase grew exponentially between 2012 and 2014, as well as gaining an association
in 2014 was the anime for Cinderella Girls,
with voicing chunibyo characters. However, another big factor that seemed to draw otaku to Maya as she started to appear in many different TV shows is her bright personality and impressive banter skills. Also, the fact that she seems to be a bit of a chunibyo herself. Some of her chunibyo stories include writing the kanji for love, aka I, on her forehead during her middle school years because she was a fan of Gaara from Naruto, although apparently she only did this at home. She was also a big fan of Tifa from Final Fantasy VII and would try to copy her. This would include making her hair long, wearing thick boots, and also wearing earrings of the same design. Probably thanks to Maya's newfound popularity, we started to see her venture into different activities. In the same year she won the award, 2014, she released her debut single, Sousho Innocence. This was actually used as the opening theme song for the anime adaptation of the manga series Akuma no Ridoru. A debut single being used as an anime opening should show you how popular she had become. Not only that, within that same year, for the first time, Maya adorns the cover of Weekly Young Jump in a swimsuit. Apparently, this was a big deal at the time. I bet you could hear the tingling of right arms everywhere. Maya still continues her activities, and honestly, her career is really impressive. She not only sings, does radio shows, does voice acting for tons of anime and games.
Just one of the most popular ones, yeah.
She also does voice dubbing work for movies, has appeared physically in TV dramas, movies, and has even appeared on stage. If there's one thing for sure, Maya loves what she does, and
But frankly, that's most seiyuu these days, like, you know, the art of being a seiyuu. I wonder if there's any videos out there that goes through the full story, but from my own understanding and research, it's really changed, right? I mean, you know, voice acting from the early anime to maybe the early 2000s was very different to what it became. Since there was so much less anime, you know, most voice actors, they didn't just do anime, they, you know, did other things, right? But then in the 2000s, as there's more anime and voice acting becomes more than just voice acting, right? They're also like doing live performance, radio show, TV appearance, internet shows, you know, often music and all that. You know, while they're called seiyuu, I think if you understand seiyuu, especially these days, like a seiyuu is not just a voice actor, like they do so much more than that. It's a very multifaceted job.
I don't think she plans on stopping anytime soon. Anyway, that's going to do it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. This is the first time I'm covering a seiyuu. Please let me know if you'd like to see me cover more seiyuu, and also who you would...
I don't know much about seiyus. I mean, like, there's a lot I really like, but I don't really follow their side stuff, you know what I mean? All the radio shows and side stuff that they do, for the most part, I don't quite follow. Yeah. Sometimes I wish I did, but there's only so much time in a day, obviously. Okay. Well, I like Uchida Maya. Next we have Japan most famous cosplayer, Enako. Not familiar.
If you're an otaku in Japan, you definitely know her name. She's not just a pretty face, she's the most popular Japanese cosplayer of all time. We're changing it up again. In this episode of Otaku Files, we respectfully take a look at the queen of cosplay, the one and only Enako. Most of us outside of Japan may not be aware of some of the more interesting personalities within the Japanese otaku landscape, so I thought I'd do a little video series and try to shed some light on these individuals. This is Otaku Files. When you first enter a konbini here in Japan and go through the
Oh no, actually I think I've seen her. She had some interaction with some YouTuber before.
magazine rack, you are most likely to find a cover with Enako on it. But before the job category of cosplayer even existed, Enako was already so famous within the otaku world that if she showed up at Comic-Con, she would instantly be surrounded by those hoping to snap at least one good shot of her. Now though, Enako is raking it in. Being very open about how much she makes, Enako revealed that her annual income can be more than 1 billion yen.
Wow.
I'm not jealous. So, how did she manage to get so famous? Let's go back a bit. Enako is from the city of Nagoya, located in the Aichi prefecture of Japan, and has 2 younger siblings. She hasn't revealed much about her school years, but said it was during middle school where she first fell in love with manga and anime. However, that wasn't the reason why she first got into cosplay. It turns out Enako had a friend in middle school who was a complete otaku and was already doing cosplay herself. It was that friend who introduced her to the world of cosplay, and the first character Enako cosplayed as was Suzumiya Haruhi of the Suzumiya Haruhi series, which she was really into. This was most likely around the time the anime adaptation was being broadcasted, causing a social phenomenon within Japan. But unfortunately, no pictures exist of her cosplaying Haruhi for the first time, as initially she only did taku kos. Taku kos is short for jitaku de cosplay, literally just meaning cosplaying at home. Cosplaying for the first time, she remembers feeling both happy and yet embarrassed. The last time she did something similar was when she was made to wear a princess costume for Halloween when she was a small kid. Probably not into the idea of showing anyone her cosplaying as anime characters, Enako was just completely satisfied with doing it at home alone and didn't even think about taking any photos, let alone sharing something online. In fact, she says she didn't even know this was a thing at the time. So, what exactly changed? Well, her otaku friend would invite her to some events, and slowly but surely, Enako found herself getting deeper into the cosplay rabbit hole. Despite being a student whose face would easily get red from embarrassment if they were picked out by the teacher, going to these kinds of events helped her overcome her shyness. Eventually making more cosplayer friends too, Enako had found a whole new place for herself with those that shared similar interests. However, according to Enako, around that time within Japan, those who did cosplay weren't exactly viewed very positively. This shouldn't really be surprising though, since otaku overall were essentially just viewed as a
I just realized that's cosplay. I was literally talking about VTuber stuff, yeah. As a cosplayer from Vespo. Her name is escaping me.
bunch of weirdos hanging around Akihabara for the longest time. As a result, Enako actually hid the fact that she cosplayed from her family, but that would end up being a lot more harder than she could have ever imagined thanks to one special event. Up until that point, Enako had participated in events mainly around her hometown of Nagoya. Apparently, she also participated in the semi-annual event Wonder Festival that is held in Chiba, an event that focuses on figures and plastic models. This is where some say people in the cosplay world started to really take notice of her. And then she went to Tokyo and attended the biggest doujinshi event in Japan, Comic-Con, known in English as Comic Market. If you're interested, I also have a video on Comic-Con. The next thing she knew, the Japanese interwebs were abuzz with people saying that there was a really hot cosplayer at Comic-Con. My guess is that Enako already had some sort of small fan base, but now being at Comic-Con and being exposed to a ton of photographers, she was propelled to a whole new level of fame within the cosplaying world. Oh, and by the way, her mother did end up finding out about her cosplaying. Apparently her reaction was less than positive at first, but she did eventually come to accept it. However, it wasn't just photographers that Enako caught the eye of at Comic-Con. While participating at one Comic-Con in her second year of high school with fellow cosplayers Kuroneko and Itsuki Akira, cosplaying as Takane Manaka from the popular dating sim Love Plus, a producer from Sony Music named Yayama Takayuki, who also happened to be attending Comic-Con, approached the three with an offer. He initially asked them to appear in someone's promotional video, but within the course of their conversation, he would later end up making a different offer.
Is he gonna say, like, we need an idol group?
He wanted the three of them to form an idol unit named
Of course.
Panache.
It's always an idol unit.
Apparently, Panache is French for mixed together.
And you say panache.
Takayuki explains that a big reason for wanting to make this group was that he loved otaku culture, and after speaking with the three of them, he wanted to see if there was something new that they could do together. Although most of the people in his company didn't seem to understand what this project was all about, the idea managed to go forward. In August 2012, on the last day of Comic-Con 82, Panache announced their debut. A few days later, member Kuroneko would announce on Twitter about the formation and that their debut single was available for pre-order. An idol group formed of cosplayers backed by a major record company.
Wait, sorry, I was with him. That means she could sing. She already could sing.
I doubt that was very common back then. What was also cool is that the members had a lot of say about things like the group's concept, their theme colors, costume designs, and so on. The response from the cosplayer community was also really positive, with many saying they pre-ordered their single. But just because they formed this idol unit, none of the members were planning to stop their cosplayer activities. In that year of October, they released their single Kirameki Miraizu and even held a special release event within that same month. Not only that, apparently they had their first concert the following month after that. Things definitely seemed to move quickly, but Panache's run was pretty short-lived. They did hold quite a few concerts, including one in Akihabara, released a second single the following year in February, and even an album the next month after that, but on April 26th, it was announced that Panache would break up. They lasted for around 6 months. The reason given was that member Kuroneko decided to start looking for a job, and was therefore unable to carry on her activities with the group. Not soon after the group's disbandment, Enako decided to cease her cosplaying activities, saying that she wanted to concentrate on her studies. Looking back on it, Enako explains that up until that point, she had invested all her free time into doing cosplay-related things, and wasn't even thinking that cosplaying could actually lead to a stable income source. To her, it was just a hobby. Instead, she decided to take up a part-time job in her hometown of Nagoya in a maid cafe. I mean, that's still pretty close to cosplaying. She left the cosplaying world behind her, but she wasn't forgotten by her fans. In particular, one girl who would often come to Enako's maid cafe and ask her, "Aren't you going to start cosplaying again?" One thing I think I need to touch upon is that ever since she started cosplaying and getting noticed online, Enako had always had her fair share of haters. I'm going to guess that it might have been a break from all that negativity too, but she says she was always determined to do whatever she wanted to do regardless of what people say. That might be the case, but it seems the words of that fan did have an effect. After around 2 years from leaving the cosplaying world, Enako decided to return. However, something happened that would change the course of Enako's life and turn her cosplaying activities from a hobby to a really well-paying job. She would come to meet Inui Yoko, otherwise known as Yokyun. Yokyun is honestly someone that could have their own video altogether. But to keep things short, up until she was around 30, she was in an idol group, a part of Nakano Fujoshi Sisters, known as Fudanjuku, and has also done a number of other things. She unfortunately wasn't hugely successful in her idol activities.
As always in the world of the headmaster in prison school, you know, boobs are just an imitation of butts, so it has to be butts.
But was a very well-known and respected individual within that scene. After graduating from her idol group, she started her own business, a maid cafe. Apparently, she even had a stage built within the cafe where idols would perform. Pretty cool. And then, after around a year, through an acquaintance who was an idol producer, Yokyun was introduced to Enako. Apparently, it was a bit of a weird situation. Enako was already well known by that point, but wasn't a part of any agency. She also seemed to be pretty oblivious to things like agencies and contracts, etc., making Yokyun pretty concerned that Enako would end up falling victim to some badly intentioned people. As a result, Yokyun ended up taking Enako in, but not really sure where to go from there. Eventually, she decided to become Enako's producer, and also started up her own talent agency known as PP Enterprise Inc., or PPE for short. PPE would focus on cosplayers, but also other types of influencers too. However, there was no guarantee of success. This was at a time when many companies in Japan weren't working with it.
Is that a Lamune cosplay? Man, she does a lot of Vespo cosplay. Huh?
Influencers, let alone cosplayers. But luckily, Yokyun managed to set up a deal with Weekly Young Jump, getting Enako to be on the front cover. This was apparently the first time Weekly Young Jump had a cosplayer on the front cover, so I'm sure many people high up were a little nervous about the results. Like I mentioned previously though, Enako or many people...
I'm talking about VTuber, I see some Baika cosplay in the back. With Elesta, Toko, and Angie Katrina.
High up were a little nervous about the results. Like I mentioned previously though, Enako already had an established fan base, so unsurprisingly that issue of Weekly Young Jump sold like hotcakes. A massive success for Enako and PPE. Recognizing this huge success, a lot of companies started contacting Yokyun for a chance to work with Enako. Not soon after that, Enako would start her own radio show, would appear in a variety of magazines, as well as start appearing on TV. She went from being famous just within the cosplay world to now the whole of Japan. Even the government recognized Enako, making her an ambassador for Cool Japan in April 2020. Enako is still very much active to this day, and you can find more about her through the links in the description below. Anyway, that's gonna do it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching.
Okay, well, a pretty straightforward story. I mean, I guess I didn't really know the name, but I've seen her before, yeah, doing some VTuber cosplay or collabing with VTuber a little bit. She's definitely into them. Yeah, she's insanely good looking. Great. It's hard to say something else. I mean, you know, I don't know if she makes her own cosplay. I don't know if you talked about that. Not that I believe that if you don't make your own cosplay, you're a bad cosplayer, right? That's not what I mean, but yeah. He talked more about like the overall story, right? Very nice, very nice. Myself, I've never really followed cosplayer for the most part, except one time, like a long time ago. Back when I was still like using Facebook, so like 2012, 13, 14, there was this Western woman called Jessica Nigri, which was also the kind of cosplayer that did like lewd cosplay, I guess, kind of. And I used to follow a little bit. Well, I remember there was also like a duo that I used to follow, but I can't remember the name. They did more like their own cosplay by creating like, you know, crazy armor and stuff like that. Those two are enjoyed for like the craftsmanship rather than the lewd. You know, I'm sure, even though I'm not really into the cosplay community, I'm sure it's an eternal debate between like lewd cosplay and, you know, handcrafted cosplay. I'm sure people fight over that all the time. Yeah, I mean, I like seeing cosplay picture, but I'm not really someone who goes out of his way to do that, you know. I don't really use X or anything, so like I don't really follow cosplayer again. Yeah, even though I appreciate when I see image of it, I guess. So yeah, she's pretty hot and nice cosplay, all I can say. But yeah, I'll leave it at this episode for today. A bit of a short stream, but I got things to do. So we'll watch more videos like this next time. Thanks for watching. Check out Neon John, like, subscribe, comment, and I'll see you guys next time. ExoticBankai. See you.